Have you ever loved someone so deeply that you forgot yourself? You smile when he's happy, feel sorrow. When he turns cold and slowly you no longer recognize the sound of your own voice in your life. Love, that thing we call magic, becomes a labyrinth, and somewhere in its winding paths you lose your way. But there's a deeper truth awaiting your awareness. Love is not merely an emotion, it is a ritual, a spiritual journey, a process of alchemical transformation where your soul does not simply love another, it begins to awaken itself. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychoanalyst who spent his life listening to the whispers of the unconscious, once wrote, "Love is the most intense experience of the self confronting its own shadow." This is not a warning. It is an invitation to move beyond fear, to see through the projections you've cast upon others, and to meet yourself whole in the mirror of love. In today's video, I will share with you 5 profound principles that wise women follow when they love, but not as tactics of dating or behavioral psychology. Rather, in the way Jung saw it, through soul, through symbol, through the path of individuation, the sacred journey of becoming whole. From the very first moment, ask yourself, have you ever lost yourself in love? Your body already knows the answer. It's in the contortions you perform to please, in the shrinking of your laughter, in the nights spent waiting for a message, in that quiet knowing that you are fading and yet you cannot stop. That is not love. That is dissolution. And dissolution never expands the soul. It only dims your light to others and to yourself. But if love is not the abandonment of self, then what is it? To Jung, love is a mirror. Every person we fall for, every infatuation, every heartbreak, they are symbols, rising from the unconscious, carrying messages from the unseen parts of ourselves. When you fall for a confident man, it might be the animus in you seeking integration. When jealousy consumes you, it could be the voice of the shadow long suppressed. When you long for tenderness, it may be the forgotten anima within you, calling to be remembered. Do you see love as not merely a relationship between two people? It is a soul ritual where every kiss, every argument, every silence is part of the secret language of psyche. And if you can be still enough to listen, then the very place where love wounds you is where you may become whole. And the wonder is this: you can learn to love without losing yourself. You can enter a relationship and not vanish, but remain fully present as a sacred being, a woman of light and shadow, fully aware, fully alive. Wise women do not learn this from books. They learn it from breaking, from loss, from the moment they look in the mirror and no longer know who they are. But then they return, stronger, clearer. They learn to stand rooted in love without being swept away. They no longer need love to complete them. They choose love as a companion on their path, not as a place to hide. And you too can become one of them. In the next part of this video, we will walk through each of these principles, each living symbol Jung left behind, so you may understand true love does not make you smaller, it grows you. And we will begin where all inner journeys begin with you. Are you ready? Carl Jung called it the persona, the facade we construct to survive in the world, to be loved, accepted, and called good. You may be an independent woman, gentle, attentive, forgiving, but sometimes you're unsure if that is truly you, or merely a performance so well-rehearsed it feels real. Jung once wrote, "The persona is that which in reality one is not, but which oneself as well as others think one is." The persona is not inherently false, it is the bridge between the self and society. But the trouble begins when we become fused with the mask, when we sacrifice our true self in the name of being pleasing to others. Imagine a woman, perhaps it's you or someone you once knew. She falls deeply in love, and in that love she begins to shrink. She skips gatherings with friends, delays her career dreams, adjusts every word so as not to upset him. She becomes sweet, easygoing, and acceptable, but slowly she also becomes a stranger to herself. And one day when he leaves, or worse remains, but in absence she looks into the mirror and whispers, "Who am I if not someone who is loved?" This is the beginning of a profound journey Jung called individuation, the process of separating from learned roles and worn masks to return to the whole self. Not the most agreeable woman, not the perfect partner, but the one who is most authentic to her own being. Individuation is not isolation. It doesn't require that you live alone, only that you live without abandoning yourself. It asks you to step into love while preserving your core, your voice, your boundaries, your unique essence. So how do you know if you're living as a whole self or just a persona? When you're exhausted yet still smile so you don't cause trouble. When you say yes, but your soul screams no. When you feel empty even in the arms of someone who loves you. That is when your soul knocks not to make you better, but to call you back to yourself. And I know this journey is not easy. That is why we are here together. In this space, you don't need to pretend. You don't need to be the most positive, healed, or awakened version of yourself. You just need to be you. If you've ever changed too much just to keep someone from leaving, if you've ever felt swallowed by love, share that in the comments below. Not to be advised, but to be seen. Because maybe what you say aloud is what someone else has been trying to name in silence. In the next part, we'll descend deeper into the realm of projection, the phenomenon where we believe we're in love with another, but are actually in love with the part of our soul we've lost, now mirrored in them. You'll come to see why love at first sight is sometimes not love at all, but a reunion with yourself through the image of another. And from there, you will begin to love without confusing longing with truth. Don't go. There is still so much waiting for you. You're not just in love with him. You are in love with a forgotten part of yourself reflected upon the figure of a man. This is what Carl Jung called projection, the psychological phenomenon of casting inner content outward. And for women with deep hearts, this is not a mistake. It is a ritual, the opening ceremony of a spiritual awakening. When you see a man and your heart instantly trembles, as if you've known him for lifetimes, when his gaze unsettles you for no logical reason, when a single message from him makes you feel alive like you can breathe again, then it's likely you are not falling in love with him. You are falling in love with a part of yourself that he has unknowingly awakened. Projection is not random, it is ancient, it is collective. Jung once said, we do not see others as they are, we see them as we are. And in love, this becomes even more potent. Why? Because love is where the deepest layers of the psyche rise to the surface. When you love, you don't just love with your heart, you love with your wounds, with your buried desires, with the archetypal images that have lived in the collective unconscious for thousands of years. Imagine this. Emma, an intelligent, independent woman with a thriving career, attends a casual seminar. She notices a man sitting quietly in the back of the room. He does nothing extraordinary, but within moments she feels pulled into an invisible tide. She describes it as, there was something about him steady, gentle, as if I could sit beside him all day without speaking a word. They exchange a few words, as polite kind, but nothing remarkable. And yet Emma cannot stop thinking about him. She finds herself longing for his voice, his eyes, even his breath. She believes it's love at first sight. But in truth, it is the projection of her animus, the inner, masculine archetype not yet integrated. This man awakens something long buried in Emma, the part of her that knows how to be silent, without losing worth, the strength that does not need to prove itself, the presence that can simply be. He was not her destiny, he was her mirror. So how do you know when you are projecting? Here are subtle but profound signs. Overwhelming feelings from the start. You barely know him, yet you're convinced he's the one. Idealization. You can't see his flaws. Everything about him seems uncannily right. You feel smaller, as if he holds a part of you that you've lost. Fear of losing him before anything has begun. A deep panic at the thought of him disappearing. Script writing in your mind, imagining conversations, future situations that have not happened. If you recognize yourself in these, do not blame yourself. This is not a flaw. It is an invitation to awaken. So what does a wise woman do? She does not attach herself to the image. She turns inward and asks, what part of me is he waking up? I see his strength. Am I searching for my own hidden strength? I sense his gentleness. Am I longing for the comfort I've never given myself? When you gently lift the projection off of him, you begin to see him clearly, not as a savior, not as destiny, but as a man. Perhaps compatible, perhaps not. But you have become more whole. And in that moment, you stop looking for someone to complete you. Because you've begun the return to yourself, a woman who doesn't need to be held to feel worthy, a woman who knows that love is not an escape from the self, but a journey of reunion through the reflection of another. Pause here for a breath and share. If you've ever loved this way, projected your own light onto a man, tell that story in the comments below. Not to be fixed, but to be seen. You are not alone. You are not too sensitive. You are simply living from a soul that has gone unnamed for too long. This space is for deep hearts where you do not have to shrink in order to be accepted. Leave a comment to connect. Perhaps your story is the mirror someone else needs. And in the next part, we will step into a territory many fear to face, the shadow. where the disowned parts, jealousy, rage, the hunger for control, are silently shaping the way you love. Will you dare step into the dark to reclaim your light? Come with me not into a lesson, but into the unseen heart of yourself. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. There are moments when your reactions seem disproportionate. You cry when you should laugh. You erupt in anger at a light joke. You feel intense jealousy toward a woman who's done nothing wrong. And you ask yourself, why am I like this? The answer lies in the shadow, the part of you that you've tried to reject, bury, forget, but it still lives. And love more than anything else is the arena where the shadow is called into the light. The shadow is not evil, it is simply unseen. In Jungian psychology, the shadow is the collection of traits, desires, and emotions you've been taught are unacceptable by family, society, or your own beliefs. But the truth is, they never disappear. They simply go underground and wait for your weakest moment to emerge. Have you ever experienced this? That spike of jealousy when your partner compliments another woman, even as you force a smile. The fear of abandonment making you check his phone again and again, even though you say I'm not the controlling type. The quiet voice of insecurity whispering whenever you try to step into the light. Who would care about you anyway? All of that is shadow. And the most important truth is this. The shadow does not need you to defeat it. It needs you to listen. When you do this, you enter the journey Jung called individuation, the becoming of your whole self. Not by erasing the shadow, but by integrating it into your being. So how do you begin? Here are 3 simple yet profound shadow work practices. 1. Emotional journaling after you're triggered. When you feel anger, jealousy, sadness, right? Then ask yourself, when was the first time I ever felt this way? Chances are you'll return to a childhood memory where you were left out, compared, ignored. 2. The mirror of judgment exercise. Every time you harshly judge someone, she's so fake, she's too. Controlling, write down what bothers you most about them. Then ask what part of me also carries this trait, but I've disowned it. 3. Dialogue with your shadow. Sit quietly. Breathe slowly. Imagine your shadow sitting across from you. Ask, what do you want to tell me? Write the response without judgment. Do this often and you'll begin to shift. You won't explode over small things because you'll understand it was never about today. It was an old wound still bleeding. You won't crave validation from men because you've begun to validate yourself. You won't feel like you're too much because that too much is exactly where your life force lives. The shadow isn't frightening. What's frightening is living your whole life without knowing it's been driving the wheel. A woman once wrote to me, I've always prided myself on being independent. But when I'm in love, I become controlling, anxious, jealous. I hated that part of myself. But now I see it's the child inside me, the one who was abandoned, crying to be loved in the right way. You see, we don't need to eliminate the shadow. We need to embrace it. Not to let it drive, but also not to blindfold it. And when you do that, you become unbreakable. Not because you're tougher than others, but because you are no longer afraid of your own darkness. You have seen it, named it, and led it with awareness. And now I want to invite you, share in the comments. When was the last time you overreacted? What do you think your shadow was trying to say? This is not just a video. This is a space for awakening souls to find each other. If you saw yourself in these words, leave a sign, a story, a thought. You are not alone. We are a community, those who are stepping out of denial and into the honest light of who we really are. And in the next part, we'll go even deeper. How do you choose a man who doesn't just make you comfortable, but helps you grow? Because not everyone who feels good is good for your path. In part 4, we'll explore true love will not let you stay the same. It will evolve you. Get ready. The line between a person who hurts you and one who challenges you is thin but deeply important. In love, Jung described true relationship as a psychological grail, a sacred vessel where 2 souls not only reflect each other, but also transform each other. So how can you tell the difference? A harmful partner makes you feel small. You constantly question your worth, live in fear of being abandoned, and feel manipulated by silence, blame, or control. They don't see you. They only see the version of you that serves their ego. By contrast, a healthy challenger helps you see yourself more clearly, not through judgment, but through reflection. They may say hard things, but from a place of love. They don't want you to be someone else. They simply want you to be more fully yourself. The story of Maya and Daniel is a living example. Maya, a writer, sensitive and often self-doubting. Daniel, an engineer, logical and direct. When they fell in love, Maya found Daniel too rigid. Daniel thought Maya was too emotional. They nearly walked away many times. But instead of retreating, they chose to sit with the tension. Daniel learned to listen to emotions without trying to fix them. Maya learned to set boundaries without self-sacrifice. They went to therapy. They learned to name the shadow, the ego, and unmet needs. 3 years later, they are still together, but more importantly, they are more themselves than ever before. Real love does not make you feel endlessly comfortable. It demands your honesty. A person who challenges you is someone who dares to point out when you're hiding, refuses to collude with your wounded ego, calls you back to truth even when it's uncomfortable. But the difference is this: they do it with love, not with power. You'll know it's the right kind of challenge, not when it's easy, but when even in difficulty you still feel respected. Here's a simple way to tell. The harmful one, the healthy challenger, makes you feel wrong, makes you feel you can grow, silences your voice, invites you to speak your truth, controls through emotion, calls for emotional responsibility, plays on your fears, awakens your potential. If you're in a relationship, now ask yourself, does this person truly see me? Can I be honest about my shadow around them? After conflict, do I feel hurt or enlightened? And if you've ever loved someone who only caused pain, know this: that does not define you. You were not wrong to love. You were learning, and learning is not about becoming colder, it's about becoming clearer. Share with me in the comments. Have you ever encountered a healthy challenger in your life? How did they help you grow? We are building a community that doesn't just talk about love, but practices it as a soul journey. If you need a space to be heard without judgment, you found it here. And now prepare to enter the final part where all the fragments come together. Because whether you've learned to hold your center face, your shadow recognize projection, or choose the right person, Jung reminds us of this. Love is not the destination, it is the path back to wholeness. In part 5, I'll share with you how to make love a path of awakening, not a place where you lose yourself, but where you meet yourself in the eyes of another. See you in the final chapter. In this final chapter, we no longer speak of love as a feeling. We speak of love as a spiritual process, a path back to wholeness, to the self that Carl Jung described as the center of the soul, where all your broken parts are gathered, without needing to be fixed, without asking for permission. And it is only from this place that true love can begin. To love yourself not in the way Instagram tells you to, but in the language of Jung's self-love, is a sacred step in the journey of individuation, the deep inner path where you learn to meet yourself again through the unconscious, through the shadow, through the fragments of soul you once rejected. Self-love is not just spa days, solo travel, or daily affirmations. It's sitting with your fear of abandonment and not rushing to fill it with someone else. It's writing down the dream that made you cry and asking, what is my soul trying to say? It's looking in the mirror, seeing the scars, and still saying, I choose to stop running from myself. That is self-love as individuation. Jung wrote that the symbol of wholeness is the mandala, a sacred circle with the self at the center and all the unconscious parts orbiting around it. The shadow, the persona, the animus and anima, the child, the warrior, the rebel, the mother, the teacher. Every part you've encountered in love, wounding, jealousy, heartbreak, idealization, letting go is a piece of that mandala. Only when you're brave enough to face each fragment and gather them with kindness and without judgment can you enter love from wholeness, not from lack. And from that place, you no longer need love, you choose it. You don't seek someone to save you. You want to share the light you've already kindled within. You no longer ask, am I enough to be chosen? You begin asking, is this love deep enough to help me grow? Love becomes a spiritual path, not always easy, but sacred. You and your partner, if both awake, will not try to own one another. You will walk each other home into yourselves. Old wounds will no longer be excuses to close the door. They will become lessons you learn together. Each reaction will no longer be about blame, but a mirror into the unloved shadow. Each moment of intimacy will no longer just be sensation, but a ritual of the soul. Imagine your love again as a mandala. You are in the center. The other is not your missing half, but a sacred circle beside yours, spinning around their own inner light. Two souls, two mandalas, not overlapping, not consuming, but meeting in freedom and awareness. This is the kind of love Jung called the love between mature souls. And you can begin it now. No one else needs to walk in first. Write your own mandala. Ask, what parts of me have I forgotten? What am I demanding from others that I have not yet given myself? Love yourself as a slow, rugged, sacred return. And if this moves something in you, I invite you to share one thing. What part of this video touched something deeper? How are you learning to love yourself truly? We are building a community where love is not a fleeting feeling, but a gateway into the soul. If you see yourself in these words, stay, comment, say something true. Because maybe your words will be the mirror someone else needs to come home to themselves. And finally, I leave you with a line from Jung's Red Book. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. Love is not a destination, it is a mirror. And you, if you dare to look into it, will no longer be lost. And now, after walking with me through these 5 principles, 5 deep layers of the soul, perhaps you're sitting somewhere right now, in a quiet room, or in the middle of a busy life. But inside, you're hearing a different sound, the voice of yourself clear, maybe for the first time. Love, as we've explored, is not a dissolving into someone else. It is a journey inward, so that from that place, you can love without losing yourself. You no longer ask to be chosen. You begin choosing yourself. Pause here just for a few seconds. Take a deep breath. Look back at the relationships you've been in. Did you lose any part of yourself in love? Did you stay silent just to be kept? Did you shrink just to stay? If you did, that doesn't make you weak. It simply means you loved with everything you had. But now you can love differently. Remember this. You can love deeply and still hold your boundaries. You can open your heart without disappearing. You can choose someone who challenges your growth, not just someone who makes you feel safe. You can hold your darkness without shame, because in that darkness lies a strength you once forgot. And you can walk love as a path to wholeness, not as a shortcut out of loneliness. Jung once said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. So if this journey reminded you of a forgotten part of yourself, please don't stay silent. Share in the comments. What part of yourself have you lost in love? How are you learning to come back to who you are? Maybe your words will reach someone the same way this video may have reached you. And if you feel something shifting in your heart right now, don't rush to explain it. Just know this, you are not alone. We are here, women learning to love with awareness, with light in our eyes and shadow by our side. This isn't just a video. This is a soul space, a place to remember. You have always been enough. You have always been whole. And true love will never ask you to forget that. If you want to keep walking this path with me in upcoming videos, we'll go deeper into questions like, how do you tell the difference between soul and longing? When is it time to let go and when to stay? How do you heal the shadow without abandoning your femininity? Subscribe not for the algorithm, but because maybe this space can be the mirror that brings you back whenever you feel lost. Thank you for listening with your whole heart. If something in this video felt true to you, just leave a single dot in the comments. Sometimes a dot is enough to let someone else know. I'm not the only one who feels this way. See you in the next video, where love is not a place to run away, but a place to return to. And I'll be waiting for you there.